On this week's GTA 5 O'Clock, just what is GTA Shetland Pony? Has digging into the game's code revealed a hidden mystery? And alone in a bustling city, we check out your Snapmatic pictures. It's all here on this week's GTA 5 O'Clock. Hello and welcome to this week's GTA 5 O'Clock. I'm your host, James Jarvis, and I'm joined, as ever, by co-host Dan Dawkins.
Hello.
Hello, Dan. Lots of interesting things to talk about today, not least in the fact that we found GTA Shetland Pony.
The plot thickens.
That's right.
The narrative of the last few weeks is that we feel like we've been owning in on a release date for, GTA 5 Next Gen and PC. You've heard the various discussions. We've quashed possibly our own rumour that the game might be delayed. And we're narrowing in on like a release period, we think, of around about sort of mid-November. We've talked about a few dates over the previous weeks. New evidence has come to light that further corroborates the existence of the PC version and that it is, in fact, quite imminent.
Yeah, so we know it's coming. Obviously, it's probably going to come out at the same time as the Xbox One and the PS4 versions. But recently, on Steam, there has been some activity surrounding GTA 5 and a file called Shetland Pony. Now, if you go onto the Steam database, which is steamdb.info, this is a tool that's made to give better insight into applications and packages that Steam has in its database. Now, included in that is GTA 5. It has been there for some time. But on Friday the 5th of September, 2 people played this GTA file for almost 2.5 hours. So you'd guess that if this data is correct, that's probably a bit of playtesting going on, that because of the way Steam has to work and it sends data to this online database, that data has been pulled out. So that's why it's come to light. Why is it called Shetland Pony? Well, why not? I guess it's probably just an internal file name. So if any of the developers are friends with anyone else on Steam, which they're probably friends with a lot of other developers, it won't come up as this guy is playing GTA 5. It will just come up as saying, this guy is playing Shetland Pony. And you'd go, what's that? That's weird. But it's just a way to hide the fact that the beta is being tested and stuff. Sony did it recently with Drive Club. Their beta was called Cupcake. So if you're on PSN, you might have seen people saying playing Cupcake beta, and you would have gone, I wonder what that new game is. It was Drive Club, but that secret came out relatively quickly because everyone on the forums, I think it was a not quite public beta, but it was around. So they were like, yeah, I'm playing the thing. It's called Cupcake for some reason. Obviously, Rockstar have a lot tighter grip on the kind of people who they're going to let into this beta and the NDAs and things in place. So you're probably never going to hear it being referred to as Shetland Pony again. I wouldn't have thought they're going to put that on the box, Dan.
It's unlikely at this stage to rebrand as Shetland Pony.
But there you go. So it looks like GTA 5 is being tested at the moment, currently on PCs and on Steam, to make sure that functionality is working. As for a release date, we're still aiming for around November, we think. But that's your little update on the next gen GTA, or new gen, I should say, GTA versions. So let's move on to the version that we've got our hands on right now, and the possibility that we could have missed something quite significant in terms of the GTA the GTA mysteries. This relates
Case reopened.
Yes. Now, it doesn't quite relate to the UFOs or the jetpack that you're so adamant.
Or does it?
Well, I mean, it could.
Yeah.
So some of you might have already seen, but there's been a post on Reddit recently from DC Millions. Now, I was going to bring this up last week, but we unfortunately ran out of time. So he's found a lot of code. He's been going through it extensively and has broken down pretty much everything in the game and has started to check what certain things do and what certain things activate other things. So, for example, you have to do certain missions in the game before contacts are added to your phone and that kind of thing. The game will check for that kind of information. It will go, have you completed this mission? Yes or no. If yes, open up Simeon in your phone and then you can ring him. So the code he's found indicates that a pedestrian can activate one of 2 special ambient animation based on being injured or not. Now, he does point out that pedestrian in the GTA 5 game code is a very broad term and can refer to the player at times, so Michael, Franklin and Trevor, when not being actively controlled by you, become pedestrians in the game code. I guess that's to make them have that space in the world so they can wander around and do whatever they want. Like they're just sort of classed as pedestrians. So DC Millions said, I should mention the code tells us that all of the ambient stuff listed here only happens when wearing the robes. And I personally can't find it in the code if it's during the 10 days or after, but you must be wearing the robes for any of this stuff to happen. Now, that 10 days he's referred to there is when you do the Epsilon missions, and you're told to go out in the desert and wander around for 10 days to complete the mission, basically. It's really quite a laborious task, and a lot of people cheat their way through it. You can put rubber bands on the controller to make Michael just run in a circle. You have to walk a certain distance in the desert as well. So it's whether those 10 days, because you can just sleep through them, it's whether something has been missed within those 10 days that no one has seen, because all you need to do is just keep sleeping and the clock keeps around, and then you're like, oh, the 10 days are over, and then you complete the activity. But whether you're meant to actually do something during those 10 days is yet to be discovered, hopefully. So basically, the code of once you're wearing the Epsilon robes, he says it's absolutely massive, but the code clearly shows there are special animations and conversations that no one, to my knowledge, has ever unlocked with the robes on. So he says the code gives us 6 places where these things could be triggered, or where you end up. He can't actually tell, so you might do something and then end up somewhere. Yeah. It checks if the pedestrian is planting a bomb, and checks for injuries nearly consistently. Now, I think that's probably mission-related stuff, like if you're planting a bomb, you can't switch characters and that kind of thing. Yeah. But he does say there's at least one conversation and one phone call that no one has ever managed to unlock. And Marnie is mentioned specifically, and something about the robes changes quite a bit of the characteristics. Now, she's the woman that you do all the Epsilon missions for. Okay. So she's going to be there probably in the game code anyway, relating to the Epsilon missions and things. But he goes on to point out that nowhere does it show that this relates to the UFO or jetpack, but at the same time, the Epsilon missions constantly reference Mount Chiliad and even make you go up there twice. One time on the observation deck where you see the come back when your story is complete sign. And so he's put it all together and thinks that this could be missing content, and the biggest lead we have right now, that something happens during those Epsilon missions or after when you're wearing the robes, and there's been something that's missed. Now, I know what you're thinking, Dan, that all of that stuff, especially the conversation and the phone call, could relate to just cut content. Yep. It could have been in there at some point. You could have had to do something and they've cut it out. That is entirely possible. But I'd like to hold on to the hope that because of the way the game works and because of the speed people wanted to finish it and the things that, as you say, get lost in the internet, where they go, have you done all the missions? Yes, okay, you've got the 100% game save. It must be something else. That racing through all this stuff might have caused us to miss something during that 10-day period that we had to activate to then push on and do something else. It's quite a big leap, I guess, because to hide something that deep, especially something that's going to be big, is quite a weird way to do things. Especially, probably Rockstar would know that people will want to skip through that kind of stuff and work out that you can just sleep and things like that. But, you know, I'd like to think that there is something still there. Yeah, I think it's I'm enjoying that you've now become the key conspirator in general. Not for the jetpack, I will point out. Oh, right, okay, what to do with this. And B, you know, the interesting thing now is in the olden days, and I mean that about 10 years ago, when you released a puzzle in a game, they were probably a bit kinder, the puzzles, and the things that back then we used to treat as Easter eggs were probably easier to find, because truthfully no one was as dialed into internet culture, or you know, the culture of wikis and Reddit, etc, etc, and we were all working in a crowdsourced way to solve puzzles. Now, like, games are produced in full awareness that they are going to be analysed at this level of crowdsourced depth. Now, even for something like, you look at Hideo Kojima's recent PT demo, where again I think Kojima was surprised by the speed with which that was cracked, given the complexity of the puzzles therein. But it still seems like the final puzzle, which is still seems to be subject of what are the actual definitive conditions that triggered the video, that's the final secret of the game,
seem kind of ambiguous.
Yeah, there's no real answer to how to finish that game.
There's no consensus. Now, whether there is actually a mystery, not or it's just random, or it all relates to this phrase of "you've been chosen" and you just literally are, we don't know. But that could be a puzzle that's created with the new world order in mind. Now, Rockstar created GTA 5, obviously being born into, and as this show evidences, we're part of that great sort of introspection around the game. Is it that they've created the ultimate puzzles in the game at a depth where it really seems unfathomable that anyone would ever go that far, but Rockstar are hoping that in the long tail of the community hive mind will eventually stumble upon it. And I guess that's the great white elephant that we've all been chasing as regards the jetpack, and maybe literally we haven't turned every stone and the joke's on us, but part of me still feels a secret tiny bit there's more. There's more, James.
Do you think there's more? Well, I think he does say that throughout the game code, Rockstar are very careful not to use any specific names, and the code indicates basically that some trigger activates some other trigger, which then activates something. Like there's no actual character names or objects are specifically mentioned. It's just like a random collection of things.
It's like a logic puzzle, and you need to trigger one condition to activate the next conditional, and then the next one beyond that. So it's a sequence of events.
Much like in PT, as you mentioned earlier, the final puzzle in that is 3 very specific things that you have to do in order, otherwise you have to start again.
Yeah, so to do one of those things in isolation is not enough. It has to be in the correct sequence, and that's where it's possible we've missed something. Hey, I keenly await the next gen version with its jetpack secretly patched in, but we'll see. I'll also add that I do feel very optimistic that quite soon we'll be seeing more or something of the next gen versions.
Probably at 5 o'clock today.
Well, let's hope not, because that would be bad for us, but good for everyone else. So exactly. I hope you're enjoying that footage of GTA 5 that hasn't happened.
Well, let's move on then before we close off today's show with the Snapmatic competition. Last week, you weren't here when I went through them, but the theme I came up with was alone in a bustling city. How do you like that as a concept?
Existential angst right there. Let's get it out there.
Well, I'm hoping you're going to be able to add something to these pictures.
Yeah, that's a great hope.
So thanks to all your entries. We'll start with that dude with da hip hop, which is he sent in this entry of so when I thought of alone in a bustling city, I thought there'd be a lot of people in it. Now there are a lot of entries with sort of selfies, but I didn't think any of them were that standout. We've got a couple later on, but I thought this one was quite nice. Good framing of the graffiti and a lone bike. Anything to add?
No, graffiti, less recession. I guess you can only say that there's an absence of humanity in a very public space.
Okay, all right. Joe Robbie's next. Now this is nicer. It's more of an atmospheric shot.
Yes, he's alone on a quiet road, as you might expect to be, but it is overlooking the city, and I guess the opaque nature of the car windows hint at a ghostly presence driving them, as if it was Christine from the old movies.
Yes. Well, our next one does have a person in it. This is from Life in Los Santos. They sent this in. People on Twitter and Facebook may have already seen this in the week, because it's the one that I use to advertise people to get their entries in. I thought this was really nice.
Yeah, it's really lovely. It's a man alone looking at the city.
Scott Hickerman is next up. I feel, well, let's see if you can offer anything more to these pictures.
My comments are more a reflection of my mental state than the actual pictures I will add.
This is another nice environmental shot. There's a helicopter there. I'm going to tell you the helicopter is alone. You're always alone when you're flying a helicopter, unless there's someone else in it with you.
Yeah, exactly. By that condition, that's absolutely correct.
But our winner this week is Brian Barnes. Now, this is the kind of picture that I wanted for Alone in a Bustling City.
Oh, yeah. Huh? And also, this ties right back into what I've been saying about Silent Hills and PT. It looks like he's recreated the grainy PT demo trailer using GTA, and it does feel like, that has got the, is it morning, is it night, where's all the people, where have they gone, zombie invasion, simply popping into the shops and he's the only guy walking down the middle of the road, where's the cars? That's great. That is Alone in a Busy City.
Exactly.
Bingo!
That's exactly what I wanted. So well done, Brian Barnes. You're our winner of this week.
One of you understood the actual question.
Yes. So let's see who can understand it next week It's slightly easier. It's BMX. That's it. So let's see if you can send in some shots of maybe some stunts that you and some guys have got together in a crew and done some BMX stunts, or some evocative images of BMXs like in gutters on the hills with the sun shining through the spokes. I don't know.
Cryptic. By BMX, what could you mean? BMX. Muse on that and send us your pictures for next week.
Yes. So thank you very much. Just before we go, I'll update you on some crew news. Now, some of you on the GTA 5 o'clock crews may have noticed that the numbers have gone up and down a bit. That is because there is some restructuring going on, as I mentioned last week. What we'd like to happen eventually is that PS3 and PS4 players end up in the GTA 5 o'clock crew. The 360 and Xbox One players end up in the GTA 5 o'clock shadows. And everyone else and the PC players end up in the GTA 5 o'clock gravels. This will just mean that people can play on their console of choice with everyone else, but it's important to note no one is going to be kicked or forced to move out of any of the crews. So if you're already in the shadows and you don't want to move, then you will not have to move. Don't worry about it. But hopefully we can get everyone who's playing on specific consoles with each other and playing collectively in a lot of our upcoming events. So check out our Twitter at GTA V o'clock for those events, and hopefully we'll get you all together playing as a community. Now, there's not going to be a challenge down this week for numerous issues that will make my head explode if we go into. It's a lot to do with networks and the game, and a lot of stuff that we can't get online at the moment. But I haven't forgotten that I'm going to make Dan fly through the Mount Chiliad tunnel in a jet, as we saw a couple of weeks ago in our Snapmatic challenge. So please come back for that. That is it for this week's GTA 5 o'clock. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next Wednesday at 5 PM GMT.